Welcome back to Debriefed, the podcast with Dami Zane. I hope you've had a good week. When I tell you, I've tried to record this podcast more than once. The first time I recorded this episode, the way my camera was doing crinkum crankum, it was tweaking. I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I cannot give the people them rubbish quality. So I decided to record again. And hopefully the second time, there won't be as much technical difficulties, if you catch my drift. Editing Dami just coming in here to let you know that there was in fact technical difficulties, okay? About halfway through, my microphone decided to disconnect from the camera. You can still hear me, but it just doesn't sound like I'm in the studio. Guys, I tried. I am not recording this podcast episode again. That would be take 3, okay? So hopefully you enjoy. Okay, I'm going to get back to editing now. If this is the first time you're hearing my voice or you're seeing my face, I like to give my unfiltered opinions on trending topics and reality TV. There has been a lot going on recently. The last week, the drama, wow. So I have a lot to get through today. Before I get into it, I do have to give a trigger warning because quite a few of the topics I'm going to discuss this week does include does include abuse, manipulation. So if this is going to be something that is going to be traumatizing for you or triggering for you, maybe this isn't the episode for you to watch or listen to. I will put timestamps to help you navigate through this episode if you still want to tune in, but it's going to be a lot, guys. It's going to be a lot. Anyway, let's get into it. Can we talk about the Sean Combs The Reckoning docuseries, please? If you haven't seen it already, don't expect a summary from me. Too much happened in that docuseries. It's on Netflix. Okay, hopefully you have a Netflix login. If you don't, I'm so sorry. Maybe you need to find someone to give you a login because this docuseries is not one to miss. I'm flabbergasted. I'm gobsmacked. I'm still processing the information that came out of this docuseries, and it's been days since it's been released. It was released on the 2nd of December. It's now #1 in the UK and the US, topping Stranger Things. So that tells you a lot because you all know Stranger Things is very popular, okay? Since it's come out, there has been hella conversation about this documentary. Hella conversation. So many polarizing opinions. Some people are refusing to watch it because they believe that it's not going to give us anything new about Diddy. They also don't agree with 50 Cent being the executive producer. A lot of people are just like, why would he do this when he hasn't done documentaries on the likes of Epstein, Steinberg, Trump, and etc. I'm going to come on to that later. 50 was hella petty doing this documentary. He definitely showed his Cancerian side and that he will happily hate on you and what happens when a Cancerian man hates on you, okay? But he wasn't the only executive producer on this project. There were about 4 others, and it was actually produced and directed by Alex Stapleton. There's 4 parts to this docuseries. The first episode covers his childhood and how Diddy entered into the music scene. The second episode covers allegations of his involvement in Tupac and Biggie's death, and also how he became even more popular after Biggie's death. The third episode covers his sexual deviance. It talks about his relationship with Cassie. It gives a bit more details around the trafficking allegations that were against him in the most recent trial. And then the 4th episode covers the recent trial, and we even get to hear from 2 of the jurors that helped come to a verdict on that case. So many things that were mentioned in this documentary had been covered before. It definitely gave us some more insight into a lot of the rumors and the allegations that we've heard over the years. However, this documentary did amazing storytelling. It went from right at the beginning, right at the start, from when Diddy was a child, and then it sticks to the facts. This is what happened. This is evidence of what happened. Do with that as you wish. There's a lot of people saying that Janice Combs is the person that created Diddy, and actually he learned all of his evil ways from his mum. Personally, I think that's half of the story. The documentary explains how Diddy didn't get to know his dad. His dad passed away when he was 2 years old. Yes, his mum did introduce him to parties. She used to do a lot of parties and have influential people attend. Certain people from the streets were were also attending these parties, and Diddy and his friends would perform. One of his neighborhood friends, his name was Tim, was talking about how in Diddy's house, his mum was always playing black exploitation movies. Like, they would always have movies on, like the Max, Superfly, in their home. And so Diddy was mesmerized by the idea of men in powerful places, to the point where Diddy romanticized the idea of his dad being this kingpin, this mob gangster, you know, the type of men you would see in these movies. It showed how he was seeking patriarchal guidance from the wrong places. He was overcompensating with the men he was seeing in these movies, with the type of men he was seeing frequent his home during his mum's parties. And that carried him throughout his whole career, because by the time he met Andre Harrell, who was said to be one of 2 influential men in the music industry, the other person being Russell Simmons, Russell and Andre were literally the gateway into music from a corporate level. These men were powerful, they were resourceful, and they had a lot of money. So obviously, once Diddy made the decision that he wanted to get into the music industry, of course he was going to try and align himself. Andre introduced Diddy into a certain style of music management. He taught Diddy that no one should be bigger than him, that he is the program, creating contracts where the artist wasn't really making any money, but he was making most of the money. That came from Andre. A running theme throughout the whole documentary was how Diddy's artists weren't seeing the money they were making. In fact, Diddy was even charging them to have him in his music videos. These times, they didn't even want him there. He just imposed his presence on their music videos, and then he would charge them. So yeah, I think to say that it was mainly his mum that created the monster that we now know as Diddy, I think that simplifies the whole situation a bit too much. Obviously, she was a big part of his childhood, his primary socialization, but he was also influenced by other external factors. And because of the level of respect he had for the type of men that he was seeing in said black exploitation films, for example, in the living room of his mum's house, in these parties, in Andre Harrell, other men like Clive Davis, power got to his head. He wanted to aspire to be like these men, but not just aspire to be like them, to be better than them. And that is what has obviously created the Diddy that we know and have seen today. Another thing that I'm seeing a lot of online is people are saying that most of the things that we saw in Diddy's documentary are spiritual. People are saying he's a warlock, he's into witchcraft, he was destiny swapping. I definitely had this feeling of there's darkness in Diddy's eyes, especially when you look at the clips from 6 days before he was arrested compared to when he was younger, compared to the photos and the videos that we saw of Diddy throughout his career. There was definitely some light in his eyes, but as he's progressed, you can see that his eyes are hollow. Like, there's nothing in that man. He just looks dark. And I'm not talking about his physical appearance. I'm not talking about skin tone. I'm not talking about the fact that he's aged, probably due to stress and the fact that he's in his 50s, right? But also because he looks like his soul has been sucked out of him. He looks possessed, if I'm going to be very honest with you. Something isn't right about that man. And I won't lie, when I saw the part about the stampede, which I don't remember because I was definitely under the age of 5 when that stampede happened, hearing that Diddy's career started off the back of a tragedy that led to 9 lives being lost. I can't lie, guys, when I first watched the documentary, I thought, was that sacrifice? Was that a spiritual sacrifice? And I do try my best not to give in to conspiracy theories, but I am a Christian and spirituality matters to me. So I do often look at things from a spiritual lens. And I can't lie, guys, that story, I said, there must be something spiritual going on here. I wouldn't say the same for the unaliving of Tupac. I think that was obviously jealousy. The documentary spoke about how Tupac and Biggie had a really good relationship. Diddy was very jealous of that relationship. Tupac was also very talented. And then when you mix in details such as Craig Mack having conversations with Death Row and thinking to jump ship over there, Suge Knight deciding he wanted to start a Death Row East, bearing in mind that was Diddy's terrain. Yeah, I think that was jealousy, that was rivalry, that was Diddy trying to use his resources to essentially show that he's the big man on the East Coast. Do not try it with me. Yeah, I'm not convinced that Diddy allegedly ordering the hit on Tupac was him trying to destiny swap with Tupac. But you see Biggie, I can see that. I think with Biggie, it could be one of two things. I think it's either a clear destiny swap, because the documentary basically painted this idea that Diddy wanted to be a big artist. Biggie was more talented than him. It spoke about how Diddy stole Biggie's Rolling Stones magazine cover opportunity. He stopped Biggie from going to the UK, threw a party in enemy territory, which essentially led to Biggie's death, right? Even planned a funeral, but charged it to Biggie's estate, tried to switch out the terms of an agreement that Biggie had already signed because he wanted it to be more favourable to Bad Boy Entertainment. And then coupled with the fact that after Biggie's death, when he did the tribute to Biggie and he released Missing You, all of a sudden Diddy's career catapulted in terms of his artist career, in terms of his rapping career catapulted, and then Bad Boy Entertainment just became this even bigger conglomerate. Yes, I can definitely see why it would look like destiny swapping. Cool. But it could also well be the fact that it seems as though Suge Knight was very aware of who had killed Tupac, because Keithy D said, Suge Knight looked into my eyes. He saw me when I fired the shots, okay? But Suge Knight ain't gonna talk, because Suge Knight is a gangster and he ain't ever gonna snitch. So if Suge Knight was aware that Keithy D and Zip were the ones that killed Tupac and tried to kill him, and he was aware of Diddy's affiliations with those two men, then obviously Suge was aware that Diddy ordered the hit, which means there's a possibility that Suge probably turned around and said to Diddy, listen, if we ever see you in the West Coast, we're coming for you. And so as a negotiation tactic, Diddy probably just threw Biggie under the bus and said, you can have him to save himself. And the reason why I think this is also a possibility is because this is the same man that when he got the 10 million deal to start Bad Boy Entertainment, he put 25% of the stocks in shares of Bad Boy Entertainment in Kirk Burroughs' name and then 75% in his mother's name, because he was worried that if there were claims made against him for the stampede, none of the money would come out of Bad Boy Entertainment. He basically made sure he was protected from any potential claims. So this man was calculated. He knew what he was doing. I don't know, as much as, yeah, it looks like there was destiny swapping, it looks like something spiritual was going on, right? It could also just be unethical business practices and Diddy acting like those men that he saw in these black exploitation movies, doing whatever he had to do to protect himself. That could also be it. Something that stood out to me in the whole documentary was how incestuous Diddy is. It spoke about how Diddy would purposely go after the women that had dated or were dating the men that he either idolized or the men that he wanted to take down. And this was a reoccurring theme. This might be controversial, but given the fact that we now know that Diddy was either on the DL or was bisexual, I think it's likely that he fancied those men. I think it's more than just he idolized them, he wanted to be them, he wanted to take their destiny, so to speak. I think maybe there was a little bit of admiration that might have been romantic. And because at that time, being gay wasn't something that they could talk about openly, wasn't something that people were doing, because these men are gangster. These are people that are trying to uphold their street credibility. So maybe Diddy thought, you know what, since I can't have those men, I will take their women. You lot might think that I'm just some nerdy guy that went to private school, that dances goofy, you know, I might not be streetwise, I might not be as tall as Suge Knight, but I will take your woman. All of it was power play, but it was also incestuous, in my opinion. It was interesting to see how that level of incestuous behavior and that sexual deviance grew and grew and grew to the point where now that Diddy's got all this resource, all this money, he's now a billionaire. He's seen as one of the most successful black men in America, in the music industry. He said, let me turn it up a few notches. Let me see how far I can take it. And boy, when I tell you, I don't think the documentary even scratched the surface of Diddy's sexual deviance. It really didn't. I think there's so much more to be said, to be heard. But because this is a 4-part series and the series wanted to cover Diddy in its entirety, like generally the big hitting stories about Diddy, it wasn't able to go into the level of detail that we probably would have wanted to see. And I'll be honest, I don't want to see it. I don't want to know it. I don't want to see it. I just have a feeling that the level of sexual deviance that Diddy is into is one that is unfathomable, because the story about having an annual freak off on the anniversary of Biggie's death Nothing could prepare me for that. Hearing that he was collecting the sperm of his gigolo that had been working with him and Cassie for 8 years so that he could watch Cassie play with it and drink it. Like, what possesses you to think of something like that? I thought R. Kelly was bad. Diddy is another level. And it just goes to show what happens to men. Not all men, some men who are power hungry. What happens to them when they have money, when they have influence, when they have power, when they have resource. Where their mind goes is crazy. I felt extremely sorry for Joy and for Aubrey because their stories are similar. With Joy, she says that someone told her one day that Diddy was playing videos of the time when he essayed her at his parties. Come to find out she was drugged, allegedly, and that's why she doesn't remember the whole experience. And then Aubrey speaking about how a witness said that they saw her being essayed by Diddy and a security guard and that she was completely out of it. She was drugged. She says she has no recollection of it. If it's not true, then are you the one that's going to speak out against someone making a claim against Diddy, to which Diddy's team can turn around and say everybody is lying? I mean, they're saying everybody's lying anyway, but that would call into question everybody's validity. Or is it true and now I'm living with the fact that something happened to me and I can't even remember it because I was drugged so heavily? Do you know how that can mess with your mind? I actually believe the stories to be true because of Joy, but also because of Little Rod. Little Rod worked with Diddy recently on his most recent album, the Love album, and Little Rod was talking about how sometimes he would wake up after being with Diddy, like after a recording session or after a party, and Diddy will be laying next to him in bed and he would be sore, but he would have no recollection of what happened the night before. He just knew he was sore and Diddy and other women would be in the bed with him, and how he found out that Diddy was recording everything. Where are those videotapes? Where's the videotape of Joy? Where's the videotapes with the Gigolo and Cassie? And where are the videos of Little Rod and all the other shenanigans that were happening in the house? When they raided Diddy's house, Daddy's house, as they call it, they got the baby oil, they got the firearms, but where's the videotapes? That's one question I kept asking myself as I was watching the whole series. I was like, everyone's talking about him taping things. Like, I remember with R. Kelly, they found some tapes at least. Surely there must be tapes of Diddy somewhere. But yeah, hearing those stories from Joy, Aubrey, Lil Rod, even Kirk saying that he was also essayed, I promise you, we have no idea, and we probably will never know just how far Diddy's sexual deviance goes. And like I said, quite frankly, I do not want to know. It's too much. It's way too much. I think if the purpose of this documentary was to call Diddy's character into further question, it did a very good job of that. If the aim of the documentary was to help us get into his mind and help us to see how power hungry this man was, how much of an unethical businessman he was, it did a very good job of that. And then lastly, if the aim of this documentary was to call into question the results of the recent trial, I think it did an amazing job of that, because episode 4 had me looking at the jurors sideways. Hearing that Diddy had a very strong PR team that was going out speaking to social media influencers and feeding them information from the courtroom, trying to control the narrative because they wanted to control public opinion of the case, was crazy to me. And then hearing from 2 of the jurors who were on the case and then quickly realizing that they were biased. We had one that said, oh, I knew his music generally, I wasn't really a fan. But then later on in the same episode, she was talking about Diddy's mannerisms and how she was able to identify some of his body language in the courtroom because he was doing the same things in Making of the Band. Sis, you studied this man. You knew this man through and through, and therefore you were biased. Every time she spoke about Diddy, this woman was smiling. She had a smirk on her face. You could tell that there was a level of admiration for this man. And then the other juror, I forget his number. I don't know if it was juror 159 or juror 161. He was an Asian man of an older generation, and he was basically saying, why would he believe Cassie? Because she basically stayed. These times we've seen the footage of Cassie trying to flee, and Diddy dragged her by her hair to take her back into the hotel room. You think that was the only time that happened? Their gigolo, what's his name? Clayton Howard. He said that happened all the time. He would assault her. She would try to run. He would run after her, get her, bring her back, take her into a room, do God knows what in that room for 35 minutes to 40 minutes. And she would come out like nothing happened. happened. I don't know if he was beating her in there, I mean, that's likely, or drugging her, or maybe reminding her that he had her career in the palm of his hands. He signed Cassie to a 10-album deal, did 2 songs with her, and then after that, put her on the back burner, a tactic he kept doing to his other artists. So for you to say, oh, she was benefiting from the billionaire lifestyle and she wanted to be there, if it was that bad, she would have left. Do you know how crazy that sounds? I can't believe people are still saying that in 2025. But anyway, hearing from the jurors just had me thinking, should there be a retrial? Is it even possible for us to have a retrial? And even if we can't, fair enough, he's got 50 months. What's that? 4 years in prison, not for the RICO, not for the racketeering, for what? Transportation to engage in prostitution. That's like the lesser charge. This documentary and hearing from those jurors particularly, I think it did a very good job of making us question the outcome of that case. I think in the court of public opinion, Diddy has lost. He's always going to have people that support him. There's always going to be people that do not want to believe the allegations against him and are going to pick holes in said allegations. Yes, you can't win everyone over. There's always going to be some people that are stupid, in my opinion, sorry to say, but there's a lot of people that will not subscribe to Diddy going forward. There's a lot of people that will not listen to his music, that would want nothing to do with him, and there's nothing he can do that's going to change our minds about that, and this documentary contributes to that. Speaking on the people that still support Diddy though, I've been seeing some opinions where people are like, oh, they're trying to bring the black man down. Why would 50 make a documentary about Diddy when Epstein, Steinberg, Trump are right there? And I just want to address this, yeah, because it's been pissing me off, guys. It's been pissing me the hell off. I don't understand why people are supporting a man who would never support them. This man will throw you under the bus to protect himself. He's done it time and time again. How many times has Diddy had a run-in with the police and he's got off scot-free? Somebody else has ended up going to jail for him or ended up dead for him. This man don't give a damn about anyone but himself and his money. His money, his image, that's all he cares about. The man that you're riding so hard for wouldn't ride for you. He doesn't even give a damn about you. He doesn't even know that you exist. This is the same man that as soon as he got into the car after taking pictures with some of his fans, he said he wanted to bathe in peroxide and chlorine. As far as he's concerned, everybody's dirty. If you ain't on the same money as me, if you're not on my level, you're dirty. You lot are peasants. Someone who wasn't paying his artists. And this is the man you're supporting. You're supporting him as if he's paying you. You're supporting him as if you want to go to the freak off, as if you want to sit on it. It's weird. I'm sorry. There's already a documentary on Epstein. There's already a documentary on Steinberg. And if 50 Cent decided to do another one on those two plus Trump, I'm pretty sure most of us would be sat. Because why? We want to see these people be exposed. Whether they are black or not, it has nothing to do with race. We need to drop that. And even though there are people bigger than Diddy, there are people higher up than Diddy who have probably done more things than what he has done, it doesn't mean that Diddy shouldn't be exposed. He 100% should be exposed for his unethical business practices, his sexual deviance, and for the havoc and abuse he has rained on the people that have been in his life across his career. Like, can we be for real, please? Black man this, black man down. Please give it a rest. Please give it a rest. Please give it a rest. Anyway, since the documentary has come out, Diddy's lawyers tried to sue Netflix. They said that the footage of Diddy from 6 days before his arrest was obtained illegally. To me, it makes sense that they're going to try and throw the law at the situation because, like I said before, the court of public opinion matters to Diddy. For him to have a redemption arc, he needs us to be on side. And on top of that, the documentary calls into question his involvement in Tupac. It spoke about the other 77 claims filed against him that are currently pending. So any conversation around what he may or may not have done, any evidence that is being presented to the public doesn't paint Diddy in a good light. And so his legal team are going to want to get all over that. Come to find out, Netflix and 50 Cent obtained the footage legally because Netflix and 50 Cent were able to buy that footage from the videographer. And I suspect it's probably because Diddy didn't pay the man. It might be in the contract that he owns the rights to the footage, but until he paid for it, that contract is breached and therefore Therefore, whoever took the footage for Diddy had every right to sell it to Netflix and 50 Cent, in my opinion. I will like to point out here that I do have a law degree, 2 in fact. Take off that information as you wish. So to me, it's hilarious that they tried to pull that one on Netflix. These times, Netflix is bigger than Diddy. This is a multinational corporation. Let's just keep it a buck. Obviously, Diddy and his team are willing to go after anyone that says or does anything against Diddy's narrative. And the documentary has already painted Diddy as the type of person that holds grudges and will always come back for the people that have crossed him. So imagine these people have spoken big and bad about Diddy in this documentary, not only for Netflix, but for 50 Cent, who has been antagonizing Diddy for ages. Like, everybody knows those two don't like each other. 50 is Diddy's enemy. Do you really think that when Diddy comes out of prison in 2028, he's not going to try and get these people? You could even say now, because based on that docuseries, Diddy has been teaching and grooming his sons. They've been initiated into the lifestyle and the shenanigans that he was getting up to. Even when you look at the people that worked with Diddy in his earlier career, Mace fled to Christianity. Shine ended up in prison, and after that, he decided to go into politics. Craig Mack, who they didn't really speak about after the whole Biggie fiasco, I did some research on him, and apparently after his relationship with Bad Boy Entertainment went south, he joined some religious cult, and then he had some issues with his health, and God rest his soul, he's passed now. Then you got Loon. Loon wasn't even mentioned at all. They didn't even show him at all. Loon went to prison and then ended up running to Islam. So everybody that was in close proximity to Diddy at that time, they either ended up almost going to jail, fleeing to religion, or they're dead. So I'm going to need these lot to let us know what protections are in place for these people that spoke up against him. And I need us to keep a close eye just in case they don't just become unalived or they don't just disappear off the face of the earth one day. I'm just saying. 50 also posted a picture of some flowers that Diddy supposedly sent him after the release of the documentary. Guys, I zoomed into the message on the flowers and I don't see any indication that it came from Diddy. So I don't know if 50's playing into the narrative that Diddy might be after him now that the series have dropped. But if that is the case, I'm going to need 50 to double up his security. I'm going to need 50 to make sure that he is also protected. I mean, this guy has survived 9 pew-pews, so it's safe to believe he has protection of some sorts. People have also been saying that 50's history isn't squeaky clean. I hear it. Obviously, he would have some skeletons in his closet. I just very much doubt those skeletons are as bad as Diddy's. That's my humble opinion. But I'm going to need 50 to up his protection because there ain't no way that Diddy's going to take this lying down. If his lawyers trying to sue Netflix and 50 Cent for that footage is anything to go by, and if he did send those flowers to 50, everybody needs to be careful. Everybody needs to be careful. Anyway, guys, I'm still processing the information we got in this documentary about Diddy, and I probably will be processing this information for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to move on. Another hot topic this week is 2 Baba and Honourable Natasha. Now, I'm a Nigerian, and so I like to keep abreast of what's going on in Nigeria. I like to be in the know of what's going on with our Nigerian artists, influencers, and etc. Okay, this one had me giggling. I'll give you a quick rundown of what's happened. 2 Baba is a legend in Nigeria, in the music industry in Nigeria. Give him his props, he is a legend. He was married to Annie Idibia, who was a running cast member on Young, African and Famous. I believe that's the name of the show. I won't lie to you guys, sometimes I butcher the names of these shows because my mouth be moving a lot faster than my brain a lot of the time. So I will put the correct name on the screen or in the captions if I got that wrong, but that is not the point. The point is she was a running cast member on the show, and in the last season she got a lot of hate. Because the way she was moving, I can't even lie, it was a bit you know, it was a bit sideways, okay? And Two-Face decided that in the midst of the hatred that Annie was receiving, he was going to announce that he was divorcing his wife. He was divorcing his wife and he was swapping her for Honourable Natasha. I'm being shady by calling her that. I'll just call her Natasha. He was switching her out for Natasha. Natasha was going to be his piece. Natasha was now the new love of his life. When I tell you, a big portion of the Nigerian community was on his side because they didn't like Annie. Now, I spoke about this on TikTok at the time. I said, I feel like there's something sinister about the way that 2 Baba / Two-Faced has waited till this very moment to announce that he's divorcing Annie. It feels like he wants to embarrass her. He knows that right now, off the back of the Young, Famous and African show, she's getting a lot of backlash. And also in our culture, in Nigerian culture, typically speaking, when such things happen, the majority blame the woman because it's still a very patriarchal society. And I don't know, it just feels really sinister to me. And if anything, it cemented my thoughts around women laying their life on the line for a man. You know, in a lot of African culture, let me be specific, in Nigerian culture, a woman's worth is still very much tied to her proximity to a man. If she is married, she is deemed as more esteemed. She is deemed as someone who has achieved something in life. And so when a woman is divorced or no longer with said husband, she's the one that gets the blame. She's the one that gets looked down upon. But also, and more to my point, because a woman's success, a woman's value is so heavily tied to a man, women are often taught to just grin and bear his misbehavior. They're told that all men cheat, so what, it's in their nature, boys will be boys, but you're not allowed to step out. You must stand by his side. He can have children outside and you just have to take it. But, you know, like the good Queen Bobrisky said, good girl, no they pay. Oh. It doesn't pay. It doesn't pay. It doesn't help you. Sticking by your man, despite his consistent disrespect, does not help you. It doesn't. It doesn't make you a better woman. Because when that man leaves you, they're still gonna say something about you anyway. It's so sad because there are some women that hold being married on their head top as if it's like the biggest achievement. And I'm not saying it's not. If you think it's an achievement for you and you've attained it, well done, sis. Well done. But this whole notion of sticking by your man, irrespective of his bad behavior and his disrespect towards you and your marriage, I cannot stand behind it, and I never will stand behind it, because that same man will now leave you at the height of your vulnerability. Yeah. I really do hope that women wake up. They wake up to this behavior and they realize that their whole being, your whole existence in life is not to serve a man. It's not. You wasn't born to accept disrespect. You wasn't born to be ridiculed and embarrassed so publicly, consistently. You wasn't born for that. That's not the purpose of your life. Honestly, if you are married, be married to someone that respects you and your marriage. So now imagine this week seeing clips of Honourable Natasha berating Tubaba in Tesco's during their trip in London, to the point where the police came out and arrested Tubaba because they thought he was the antagonist. The uproar on Nigerian TikTok. Some people were like, that's his piece, there's nothing to see here. Some people were like, Annie would never. And that's the part I want to speak on today, because I think we're doing a disservice to feminism, to womanism, to matriarchy by insinuating that one of the women is better than the other one just because she would never have spoken up against her husband for mistreating her. Yes, Natasha had her voice raised. Yes, she was the one shouting at Tubaba. But when you listen to the words that she used in that video, my sis said, why are you doing that to me? Don't do that. Don't shout at me.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do it. Don't fucking do it. Every day you're gonna shout for me. Yeah. Don't do that. Why are you shouting at me? I just want you to quiet this conversation. So can you raise your voice? Why are you raising your voice at me?
I don't know about you, but in my critical mind, that tells me that Tubaba was the actual antagonist. He's the one that did something to Natasha and she was reacting to him. Fair enough, I probably wouldn't be screaming at my man like that in public. I probably would find another way to say things or do things. But clearly she's reacting off the back of behavior that he has been showing and doing probably throughout the whole relationship. And she hit a point where she was like, no, I'm going to stand up for myself. What you were doing to Annie, you cannot do that over here. This man cheated on Annie numerous times, had babies outside of their marriage, and Annie stayed there throughout all of that. So when we say things like Annie would never have done that to Tubaba, and you're comparing Annie and Natasha, the way I see it, you're basically saying that women should be protecting these men, that women should be submissive and quiet. There's nothing wrong with being submissive, don't get me wrong, but submissive in a marriage is respect. It's not accepting disrespect and abuse. So I don't know, for me personally, I wasn't really appreciating those reactions. I was like, yeah, that's his piece. There's nothing to see here. That's the life he chose. And actually, I commend Natasha for standing up for herself. But let's not start comparing Natasha and Annie. Let's not do that. Because I actually don't think we should be protecting men like that. And we shouldn't be glorifying women for doing such. After all of that, there was also another clip of Natasha firing some slaps on Tubaba during a live. I do not condone physical violence. I do not condone it, whether it's from the hands of a man or the hands of a woman. I do not condone it, don't get me wrong. But Tubaba, you reap what you sow. You cannot be treating women the way you've been treating women and just expect that every woman is going to accept it just because you're Tubaba, just because you're a legend, just because you're a man. Annie is of a different generation. You see the generation now, we young millennials and below, we're not going to stand for it. A lot of us will give as good as we get. And I find it interesting now that people are even worried about Tubaba's well-being. Annie is not quiet. Annie doesn't take shit, but for some reason she was taking a lot from Tubaba. He left her for Natasha. Now Natasha's showing him Pepe and people want to feel sorry for him. No, Tubaba, change your ways, okay? Change your ways. Stop being abusive, allegedly. Stop cheating on your women. Maybe then Natasha will be your peace. Which brings me nicely from one useless husband to another. Todd and Kandi from Real Housewives of Atlanta. So it came out this week that they are getting a divorce. Off the back of that announcement, it came to light that Todd wasn't happy with the terms of the prenup that he signed. He said that he wasn't given the opportunity to allow his lawyers to look over it. And also he didn't agree with it. And therefore he thinks the prenup should be invalid. As a response, Kandi kindly reminded us of the clips from the special episode. I think it was from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I can't remember now. Where they covered that prenup. They covered what happened when Todd signed the prenup. And yeah, he expressed that he wasn't happy with it, but he signed it. He signed it nonetheless. So I don't know. I don't think he has a valid claim there. I don't think he's able to say it's invalid. And I think Todd knows that too. That's why he's filed for full custody of the kids. He's now saying that he believes that Kandi can't be a good mother to these kids because she puts business ahead of her children. She's always away on work. And actually the kids would benefit from having him as the sole and main caregiver of these children. Todd, you ain't fooling me, okay? The reason why you're filing for full custody is because you can't get alimony because of the prenup. Clearly, you want child support in its place. And the best way to do that is to have sole custody. You ain't fooling nobody. What annoys me about this whole Todd and Kandi situation is it's been clear that Todd has been jealous of Kandi. That woman knows how to make money. She's had multiple successful businesses. Todd, on the other hand, he has zilch. Kandi has supported him through all of his business ideas. None of them have popped off. So it doesn't take much to believe that Todd is just jealous of Kandi. He's just jealous of her success. That's why he spent the majority of their relationship trying to belittle her, trying to impose his masculinity on her. These times, just because a woman is independent, just because a woman is a boss babe, just because she's able to make money and she's the breadwinner, doesn't mean that she's more masculine than you. It should not be emasculating in the slightest. Not in this economy, but for some men like Todd who are misogynistic, it is. There was also another clip that resurfaced where Kandi was talking about doing threesomes with Todd. Now, personally, I do not believe in bringing a third member into your marriage because I'm monogamous. And I believe that if you are in a monogamous relationship, it should stay that way. I feel like men that try to introduce threesomes into your monogamous relationship are looking for a free pass to sleep with other people. I know some people might not agree with that, but that's my personal opinion and I ain't gonna change it. But Kandi did say in those same clips that if Todd stepped out of that arrangement, she would view it as cheating. And lo and behold and lo, Todd has been exposed for cheating on Kandi throughout their relationship. Can't make this shit up. I do feel sorry for Kandi. I feel like she's put more into this relationship than Todd has. This situation with Kandi is another example of the dangers of dating a man who is jealous of you. I genuinely believe that a man that is jealous of you, he will go at any lengths to embarrass you, to bring you down, because he wants to be above you, especially when he knows he just doesn't have the goods. He doesn't have the capacity or the ability to reach the heights that you have reached. At the first sign of a man treating you like competition, get out of there. You have got way too much to lose. And that is what is happening with Kandi right now. But let me know what you guys think. Last week, I watched the reunion of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. This is the season 3 reunion. And boy, was I disappointed. That reunion could have been an email. At this point, unless it's Bravo doing a reunion, I don't want it. Unless it's Andy Cohen hosting the reunion, I don't want it, because everybody else, they always do a subpar job. This reunion gave us nothing other than telling us that Taylor may or may not be dating Chase. This reunion gave us absolutely nothing. We got no closure from anything. Not enough questions were asked. Certain questions were asked, but then they weren't answered. Like, that's an hour I'm never gonna get back, but I'm still gonna debrief it for you. I'm going to start from the top. At the beginning of the reunion, the first person that got questioned in the reunion was Whitney. The only thing she was questioned on, though, was her U-turn. She went from we're all colleagues to we're friends. And Whitney explained that when they were doing the press run for season 3, she came to realize that these lot had achieved so much, and it was a shame that they were no longer friends. And so that's why she wanted to rekindle the friendship. I'm calling cap, okay? I'm calling cap. Don't get me wrong. I love Whitney. I love Whitney now. In season 1 and 2, I couldn't stand that woman. I didn't like her. But something happened to me between season 2 and 3. I started seeing her on TikTok and I fell in love. Okay, love is a strong word. I fell in like with Whitney. I felt like Whitney's persona on TikTok was completely different to her persona on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. She's a lot more likable on social media than she is on the show. I don't know if that's the edit or if she purposely plays up to the villain role. And if she does, she's playing up to it very, very well. And she's using it to her advantage. And I commend her for that. She's a lot more likable outside of the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So I won't lie, when she appeared in season 3, I was looking at her in a different light. I had no gripes with Whitney coming back and telling the girls that the only reason why she was there was because she wanted to take the opportunity to apply for Dancing with the Stars. Because God forbid a woman has goals. God forbid a woman wants to progress in life. You know, clearly Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is a stepping stone for Whitney. She's always wanted to be an actress. She's always wanted to get into Broadway. She's an incredible dancer. She's incredibly talented. She is more than just being an influencer who ended up on reality TV. She's clearly the most talented person on the whole show. So I don't see anything wrong with her wanting to use the show as a stepping stone into what she actually wants to do. At least she was honest about it. At least she told them. And yeah, they are her colleagues. In season 1 and 2, clearly they didn't have a true friendship. I think she's capable of being friends. I think when she is friends with someone, she's a good friend. But it's clear that with the majority of the women on Mom Talk, they've not always seen eye to eye. So yeah, at this point, this is a business venture. And I think the only reason why Whitney did that 180 at the end of season 3, if I'm going to be honest, is because she realized that I need to keep these girls on side. I need to still be in close proximity to this show because this show is going to bring me other opportunities. At that time, she hadn't done Dancing with the Stars. She hadn't reached semi-final. People hadn't seen the extent of her talent. So she needed to keep those women on side just in case other opportunities arise. And I'm not mad at her for that. I didn't watch this season of Dancing with the Stars, but I did see some clips of Whitney's performances because to be honest, that's all I really cared about. And I think she was robbed. I think the timing of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives coming out is what robbed her of her chance of winning that show. And I also think that the little giveaway that she tried to do with her co-dancer, Mark, definitely made her look like she was trying to manipulate the public so she could win. But she's since announced that she's going to be in Broadway next year, which means she succeeded in her endeavours. And I'm happy for her. I won't be buying a ticket to go and see it. I ain't doing that. But I'll definitely watch from the sidelines on TikTok. And so it just goes to show, even though she didn't win Dancing with the Stars, Whitney still won. She came out on top and props to her for it. The next topic they tackled in the reunion was Michaela and Jace. Michaela spoke about how she's still struggling with intimacy. She said that it hasn't improved because she's just had a baby and so she's struggling with how she sees her body. She's still not comfortable in herself. And on top of that, she also had another health flare-up. Jace basically said that he's still being patient with her and that he commends her for being vulnerable on the show. They didn't really go any deeper on that, which is a shame. It's a real shame. On TikTok, I spoke about how I didn't want the narrative to be about Jace. It should be about Michaela. And I stand by that. However, I've been watching Heather from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City's documentary about the Mormon church. It's a good watch, guys. It's not as messy, obviously, because it's a lot more informative, but it basically covers some of the things that we don't know about that church, particularly how patriarchal it is and how the church covers up things like SA. I've always been intrigued about the Mormon church because of some of the secrecy behind it. A lot of it is hush-hush. We don't get to know about the rituals and the practices that sit within the church. We only ever get to hear about how the church came to be and some of their beliefs. So of course, whenever I see any documentary or any educational pieces about the Mormon church, I'm all over it, right? But Heather's documentary basically uncovered how the church will go at lengths to protect the men in that church. And it even exposed how a lot of the time it puts a lot of the responsibility on the women to help the men work through the sin. Basically, the women are given the responsibility to help the men through redemption and retribution. Some of the stories that were exposed in Heather's documentary had my jaw on the floor. I'm not even going to go into it. I urge you to go and watch it. It's on Prime Video if you're in the UK. I don't know if it's done by Bravo or Hulu, but yeah, guys, go and watch that documentary. But having seen it, it really helped me understand why the women don't really hold the men accountable for anything in Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I feel like it was really good context into the church and why the mindset is the way that it is. I know online a lot of people have been questioning, why is it that the men are allowed to have these misogynistic views? The men are allowed to basically do what they want. They're not as hard on the men, but they're harder on the women. Once you understand the fundamentals of that church and the way that the men are propped up, you'll understand why it is the way that it is on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. The reunion didn't give conversations about SA any justice at all. At all. I feel like they skimmed over it, which is a shame because it was a big theme. It was a big storyline in this season. Michaela had about 2 minutes worth of the reunion, and then most of it was about Jesse and Marciano, Demi and Marciano, and Taylor and Dakota. Barely any conversation about what's going on between Michaela and Jace and where she is with that therapy. They basically just said to us that we should wait for season 4. So that's that on that. They did reveal some footage between Jessie and Marciano where she basically said that she was on the verge of leaving her husband Jordan. Jordan did not like that. To the point where I was worried for Jesse after that show. I was thinking he is going to come down on you like a ton of bricks after hearing that. He believed that she had said that she was going to leave Jordan for Marciano. The girls had to say, no, that's not what she said. Like, you're hearing things. I think there's a lot of animosity between Jordan and Jesse, and I think it's a shame that she's still hopeful that he's going to change. She basically said that he's already making some progress. There's still a lot more progress for him to make, but he has been making progress, and she hopes that they can make their marriage work. The venom that this man uses to talk about her, even the way he looks at her, I think it's beyond repair, personally. But let me know what you think. I did feel for Jessie when she revealed that she was also essayed when she was 19, and how going through therapy with Jordan brought that to the surface, and that has been very triggering for her. However, I do think she was being a hypocrite towards Demi after the reunion, because since then she's upset that Demi made that moment about her. She's saying that by Demi saying that she was also essayed when she was younger, and the situation between her and Marciano being triggering and traumatic for her because of that, took the light away from Jessie, who had also revealed the same. I don't know, not to belittle or reduce what had been revealed. I obviously have empathy towards that. Cannot imagine how traumatic that was. Let's just call a spade a spade. You just don't like Demi because of what Demi has done to you, and anything Demi does or says, you're going to be overly critical about it, even if you've done the same. Which brings me nicely to Demi. I'm not really one to not believe a woman when she says that she's been a victim of such things, because it's a very touchy subject. I'm a woman. I've been through things. So I understand how hard it is when someone doesn't believe you. However, Demi, the things that you were doing and things that you were saying, it makes it very difficult to support you, especially with the character that she has. We saw how much she exaggerated the situation with Chase. So obviously she could be exaggerating the situation with Marciano. You were texting this man. You were inviting him to your home, inviting him to the premiere. Your daughter had a pet name for him. So I'm not buying the whole, I was trying to keep him sweet because I didn't want the story to come out. You didn't want the story to come out, but then you was trying to persuade Marciano to lie that he had slept with Jessie. What did you think was going to happen after that? You thought he was just going to keep quiet about you? That's crazy, and it makes no sense. In the reunion, it was very much giving off I'm playing to people's heartstrings. I want to win people's empathy. And so I'm going to say all the right things to make people feel sorry for me. But then in the same breath, the way she was talking to Jen, saying things like, you've never been essayed. And then when Jess said she had been, she dismissed it like it was nothing. So you're able to dismiss Jen, but you want people to feel sorry for you? No. And I'm not saying Jen is completely innocent, because Brett and Demi had a very valid question. If you didn't see what happened between me and Marciano with your own two eyes, why were you speaking on it as if you had? Jen never answered that question, by the way, which I think is diabolical. They should have let her answer it. I don't know how they allowed her to get away with that. But Demi, please, like, your character is absolutely monstrous. Like, it's horrible. It's horrible. And I'm annoyed that Whitney is even your friend at this point. I feel like Whitney being in close proximity to you is gonna harm Whitney in the long run. And now Marciano is suing Demi and Hulu for defamation. He's saying that Demi lied on him. He's brought out receipts too. He's brought out text messages. He's also highlighted the fact that there's no proof that he actually assaulted her, because they went through the clips and they couldn't find anything. And then he's upset with Hulu because they made the allegations against him a main storyline, which of course fuels the defamation. And I'm not really a fan of Marciano. I do think he's slimy. I agree with Brett on that. He's not told the truth. His story has changed a few times throughout the whole of season 3. So it's really difficult to take him seriously. However, given the fact that there's no evidence that Demi was actually essayed, if she is lying about that, he has every right to sue her for defamation, because this is his reputation on the line. Brett coming in, apologizing to Miranda for calling her white trash. These times when he first came onto the reunion, he came on smoke. He was ready to have it with Zach, but then when he saw that Zach was coming in from a moral high ground, he piped down a few notches. And then when he got on stage, he was doing up the whole, I'm trying to be respectful, I want to hear you guys out, I want to resolve this. I'm not buying that. It was clearly a PR stunt, okay? It's damage control at this point. I think Brett and Demi are nasty pieces of work, and I think that they're overly conscious of how they come across. They're overly conscious of the cameras. I feel like they try to control the narrative a bit much. And when things don't go their own way, they turn nasty. They become bullies. And don't get me wrong, everyone else isn't innocent. Everyone creates drama. But with those two, it's just nasty. And I'm so glad that Miranda called him out on it. She was like, listen, thanks for the apology, but the timing is all off. You could have apologized to me off camera before this reunion. You had ample opportunity to do so, but you're waiting for the reunion to do it because you want to come across a certain type of way. And I'm on her side with that. I'm not buying it. Moving on. The biggest part of the reunion was the whole conversation between Dakota and Taylor. Dakota had the cheek to ask all of Mum Talk to leave the stage so that he could address Dad Talk. None of us care about Dad Talk like that. This isn't Secret Lives of Mormon Dads. This is Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. How dare you? Only for him to come on that stage and start umming and ahhing, stuttering, chatting rubbish basically, because he wants to clear his name. This is the same man that said in the previous season's reunion that he promises he will never lie again. Everything's now out in the open. He's going to be a changed man. He was bawling. He was crying, guys. And looking at the facial expressions of the men in Dad Talk, you could tell they weren't buying anything that he was saying. He was not taking any accountability for what he did. Tried to flip the script and say, oh no, we were only really talking about me and Taylor's relationship. Oh, there was pictures sent across, but she only sent me one and I only sent her two. We were separated. Taylor was pregnant and you were still sleeping with her at the time. Can we not, please? So I'm so glad that Taylor's parents were like, we're not accepting your apology. And Taylor standing on business saying that she doesn't accept his apology either. I hope she stands on it in season 4 and beyond. But it was good to see her stand on it in the reunion. And then the part that pissed me off even further was when Taylor said she regrets having a baby with Dakota. She regrets choosing him as the father of her child. Him trying to paint it as if she was basically saying he's a shit dad. I was like, you're reaching. She didn't say you're a shit dad. What she's basically saying is she wished she'd made better decisions and she hadn't gotten pregnant for you at all. Basically wishing she didn't have any affiliation with you. That's not speaking to your ability as a father. That's just saying that I wish we didn't have a child together. I wish I never gave you the chance. I wish we never had a relationship. Those are two different things. Let's not muddy the two. And of course Jordan was going to step in and support Dakota. Those men don't know how to take accountability. At this point, the only man I can stomach in Dad Talk is Connor. Zach, still got a long way to go, but he's been able to redeem himself. And Macy's man, I forget his name. The rest of them, I couldn't care less. I'll be so real. But yeah, guys, I've got a headache. I need to rest my head. My head is still spinning from that Diddy documentary.